appreciate you and joining us and learning what we do every day, all day. And NAACP is a volunteer organization. No one gets paid, including myself. And people work very hard on all issues of advocacy and civil rights. So thank you for joining. And anybody that's new, we invite you to join. It's only $30 for a membership for the entire year, or if you would like to be a lifetime member, it's $750 for lifetime member. And if you choose to be a lifetime and don't have the $750, we will accept payments of $75 a month or a year, your choice. Thank you so much, everyone, for being part of this. So one of the things as far as the President's report that I just wanted to bring you up to date on would be the lawsuit against the NAACP. And so I just want to let you know a little, as much as I can tell you. I should have had the attorney that was handling our case on this call, but I didn't. Can you guys still hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Hello?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
But sometimes I drop, and so I don't know. So I can't even remember. I think it was last Thursday. We were back in the virtual court, and it was myself and our attorneys, the city of Sacramento and their attorneys, Rick Warren and his attorney, and the Peanuts, who actually filed the original lawsuit. For those of you who are hearing this for the first time, it was simply this. We have a regular rhythm and blues event every Labor Day weekend and in Millers Park, and we had one in 2019. And so therefore, the bathrooms, they are saying that were not ADA compliant during our event, although we did have an ADA compliant porta potty. And so they sued everyone that ever used Miller Park that summer. And so in response to their lawsuit, the city of Sacramento countersued the NAACP in support of the Peanuts for suing us for non-ADA compliant bathrooms. We did indeed countersue the city of Sacramento. So at the end of the day, when the negotiations were going back and forth, we did have insurance. I need to let everyone know that. And so we were able to use our attorney through our insurance. And it started off with them wanting $20,000. The offer on the table that I had from everyone was $2,000. And so there was some back and forth on that. And so then they came back and said, would we agree to do $5,000? So the agreement was, I didn't go to $5,000, but I did bring it up another $1,000 to make it $3,000. And the ask was, if they want it to be $5,000, then the city needs to pick up the other $2,000 and pay it, because we shouldn't have been there in the first place if their porta potties was in ADA compliance. But I'm digressing. Anyway, and so the city agreed. They would pick up that extra $2,000. The other piece that was on the table was that they needed to make their bathrooms ADA compliant, and they were given, the city of Sacramento was given 2 years to make their bathrooms ADA compliant, so no one would ever have to go through what we went through. The city agreed. We asked them to drop the lawsuit. The city agreed. And so when all parties were in agreement, at the end of the day, we are walking away with paying a total of $3,000 with the lawsuit being dropped, the city of Sacramento agreeing to make their bathrooms ADA compliant, and it's with no fault. We're going in with no fault and no blame. and the insurance company will be paying that $3,000. So that's how we ended it. They're drawing up the papers for that final piece. And do you have any questions regarding the lawsuit at this point? I can't see hands, so secretaries, if there are hands up, let me know. No? Okay, I guess there's no hands up.
I
Oh.
see hands, but I don't know if these hands were before. If you need to put your hand down, make sure you put your hand down. I see Larissa Wells. Did you have a question? Okay. Patricia? Patricia? All right. I don't think there's any hands.
Good job, though.
Good job, Betty. I just think
Good job,
it's
Betty.
a little interesting that the city has 2 years to make these bathrooms ADA compliant, especially while we're in COVID. So
That's where we,
people not going to the park to play or enjoy the park per se, but that's interesting.
right now they're not in compliance. So anyone that, even after the coronavirus is over, anyone that chooses to rent out any parks, city parks with public bathrooms, they could be liable for another lawsuit until they put their bathrooms into compliance. So you can go to those parks. However, Miller Park in particular, the bathrooms are not ADA compliant.
This is Leon Guidry with a question. Moving forward, what lesson have we learned about city parks and just events in general?
What we have learned, what we are more aware of than anything, any event we do, which I find interesting, even when we did the drive-in event, the first question of this executive committee was, are there bathrooms in ADA compliant? So, so that's what we have figured out at this point, that we will always check that. We will also be conscious of any event that we do, and that we are glad that we had insurance for the Greater Sacramento NAACP, because when we were sued, even in the countersuit, that meant everyone on the executive committee could have been paying that. And so as a result, I've used this model to teach other branches in the state that insurance is needed to cover their executive committee members for frivolous suits like this one. And so to pay attention to the details when we're doing any event. The other thing I learned is that suits like this, people can wait until 2 years after the event to file a suit. So for example, I do know that this couple attended 2 other events after hours. They attended a Valentine's event, and they also attended the Black Expo. And I do know that they questioned the ADA in those events, and both of those events were Black-owned events as well. So because the 2 years are not up with those 2 events, that same couple can actually come back and sue again to those promoters or business owners. And so just be mindful of that.
And with that said, should we further reduce the risk by incorporating?
We, as NAACP, local units, we can't incorporate because we're under the umbrella of the national, which is incorporated and which is a nonprofit. The best we could do is what we did do was have insurance available, and to have a certificate of insurance for every event that we do that's physical.
Question?
Yes.
Can you, Rory, could we also request in any events in the future, we also receive a waiver from either whatever governmental relationship, we get a waiver automatically that tells us that because it's their fault, not ours, then we're holding an event. So I would say we get a waiver from the city or the county to let him know that we are aware, they're aware of it, and that it keeps us from being um, uh, uh, accountable for that situation. That's all I'm suggesting.
I don't know if we can get
Yeah.
a waiver because with most events, even with the drive-in event, we had to submit a certificate of insurance.
Right.
So
Oh,
if
yeah,
anything
I
would have
agree with it,
happened,
yeah.
we would have been covered.
Yeah.
But listen,
So go
I
ahead.
do know that we could get, such as the city, what we could have done is had them sign an agreement. It's called an H&H, which is so that we're held harmless. It's an agreement that you can have someone, a facility sign on your behalf so that you'll be held harmless in the event of something physical liability, or because I have to do it quite often with the company that I work for. We do events at facilities that, even though we have the insurance, we also have this in place. Just because you don't know who's coming to your event always if you're doing a public event.
So
You're
along
absolutely right, and maybe you can talk to me about that more privately. I never heard of that
Yeah,
before. I have
yeah,
no idea what
I
you're
will.
talking
I've heard
about,
of it,
but maybe later
Velma's
we
right.
can talk about that, and that's something we can add. Yeah.
and
Velma, what's that called again?
H&H.
That's what we
H&H.
No
called it.
harmless. Yeah.
But I'll tell you, I'll give you guys more,
We can have more detail later
right,
because I know I have a
exactly,
full
because
agenda.
it would protect us.
And
Right.
I guess my question with that, that maybe you all could discuss privately, because I don't really know.
Who's speaking right now?
Oh, this is Angela. Can you see me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Yes.
Part of my question is, as part of whatever the settlement was with the city, the understanding going forward, would they agree to give us one of those for events going forward as part of the settlement with the city?
Repeat that one more time. I'm sorry.
As part of the settlement with the city, would they agree to give us one of those in H&H for events going forward? Because it does seem like we should be able to take advantage of public facilities for events with that fear in the future, especially in that 2-year period. So as part of that settlement that included them chipping in the extra 2,000 or whatever, would they agree to do that as part of that?
If I understand your question correctly, they agreed to pay the extra 2,000. But what they're going to do with it, I can't tell you. What I can tell you is that they agreed to pay the extra 2,000 and to bring at least the Miller bathrooms up to ADA standards. That was the agreement, and that we were without fault, and that everybody would drop their claims. So that's what we agreed on Thursday.
Because
Yeah, but
it seems like the attorney should be able to add that as an additional term, no?
Yeah. Angela, that would have to be.
Well, at this point, the case is closed.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
I'm bringing you up to date.
Thank
We're not going back to court. That's 2 days that I took off work. So no, I'm not going back if that's what you're asking me to do.
Oh, no, I didn't know it was a final settlement. I didn't know it was final.
yeah.
That's why I was asking.
Okay, no. Yeah, it's final. I'm just telling you what's in it at this point.
Gotcha.
But excellent questions. I have a great team that I always ask the great questions. So it's only a couple of other bullet points that I just want to bring to your attention as far as the president's report. And I just cannot remember if I mentioned this in September. But since the last time we met, the lower courts, as far as Supreme Court's overturned President Trump's to end the census on September 30th. He overturned that. And so as far as the count is concerned, people are still able to enroll and register in the count and be counted. And they can still go online to census.gov and get that done. And they can also, when you go to census.gov, there's also a telephone number on there as well. I also have Lynn and Tehran and Larissa, who's all, I think we're all past contract employees of the census, because our contract ended last month. However,
current, Betty.
is there anything you guys want to add? I'm making it in simple terms, but there's more detail to it. But I invite my colleagues who have been part of the census this past year with me to interject at this point if you want to add something. No, don't be shy.
Rough. Betty?
Yes.
Rory, I wasn't a part of the contract part, but I was a part of the Afro-American committee that you've asked to be a part of myself. And I can just say it was rough. This is after all these years we've done census, 3 times myself in LA, back in LA, but this was rough. And it wasn't for you, by the way, and a couple of other key people, Regina, to help us out. We'd have been really lost on this whole process. So I just want to give you the kudos you deserve for the census and guiding us from a local committee standpoint, how to get it done and all the changes we had to go through. So well done, Betty, and thanks again for what you did to help us out.
We had a whole team, Tehran, Lynn, Larissa. It was a lot of work and a lot of outreach, but we're still doing it. Even though we're not working, we're still doing it. So we want to encourage people, especially in those economically challenged neighborhoods, to still get that count in. You still have until the end of this month to make that happen. So although we're not working it the way we were, we're trying to work it through organizations like the NAACP and Urban League to make sure that people are making this happen. So please remind at least 5 more people, if they haven't filled out their census, to do that, as well as registering to vote.
You're right. Yeah.
Thank you, Betty. If I can interject just a little bit. Thank you for inviting me, first of all. Thank you, everyone, for having me. This is really exciting for me. In terms of the census, thank you for the information, because I am still, even though we work together, I'm still unclear, because I don't see any more advertisements informing people that the census, you can still complete the census. Yeah. What I'm seeing right now is about voting, so I'm not seeing the census. So people probably think that it is over. It's great to know, and I know that it had been overturned, but because I didn't see anything, which is probably the same consensus with everybody, we're thinking it's just over. So what I will do is I will put the word out again and let people know that the census is actually still going on, and that they do have until October 31st, which is a couple of more weeks from now. The good thing about Solano County is let me just say this, what was bothering me the most is that even though the census said that they wanted to count marginalized people, groups, African Americans specifically, they really did not.
Correct.
No, they really did not. And it brought us on at the end of the game just for that reason. The census, when they said that, okay, we reached 2010 goals, the issue is we've had many more people come into places like Solano County, Contra Costa County, Alameda County from other places. And so reaching a 2010 count to me does not mean much, because we have more people now. So more services are going to be needed for sure. So in saying that, yeah, we still have a lot of work to do. And it may look a little confusing when we go on the map and we say, yes, we've already reached the goal. We have not reached the goal, especially with African Americans who have, since the very first census of 1790, this is the 24th census, have been undercounted, they say, by 4 to 6%. That is a grave miscount. It is more like 10 to 14% every decennial that we are undercounted, underrepresented, whereas the white counterparts are actually overcounted. How that happens, I don't know, but I thought I'd put that information out. Thank you.
Thank you, Larissa, one of my coworkers who's always, we got a strong census team. I just love everybody and make sure that information like that is out because we call them tracks. And there's certain tracks in the areas that she talked about, especially in Solano County or Napa. And there's certain areas in Sacramento, certain tracks that are still way below the state and the national count. And there are people that look like us. And so we need to make sure, because there is no more push, the everything is voting, we need to make sure that we get that information out to our community to continue to be counted. So thank you for sharing.
This is Leon Guidry would like to chime in on that.
Sure.
I would suggest as a possible solution is that go ahead and reach out to your local media, radio and television, because by federal law, they have to accommodate you with public service announcements. And if you feel that the way you feel, then take advantage of that public service agenda that you have and hit up your local media to get the word out.
That's a great idea, Leon. I'll talk to you afterwards about creating a commercial using your voice.
Okay.
One last thing, if I might interject now, what is at stake right now? Because I've spoken to a lot of people and they really don't understand. So what is at stake is $115 billion to California each year for the next 10 years. However, we are, and yes, that does impact everything from free lunches to the programs in the schools to the businesses that will come into your neighborhood to affordable housing or housing made more affordable. Those are two different things. And if if 115 billion has been appropriated, but we are only 68% as a whole, as a unit being counted, then we're only going to receive 68% of those funds.
115.
You see what I'm saying? So never mind. So it doesn't matter about the children that are being born in. We have to calculate them, about the ones that are going into senior citizenship. You know, so all of this has to be, we need every single dime, every dime. So I just wanted to put that out there to create more of a urgency. Thank you.
This is Valerie.
You're welcome. So we'll use that in the commercial, okay, Leon?
Appreciate it.
Okay, and there was 3 points that I wanted to make, so I made the first 2 already. And we are going to talk about voting at the end, so that's my 4th point on this piece. I did bring to the attention of the executive committee last Thursday night one of our newest cases that has come in our door, and I just wanted folks to be aware that we are, we're going after Southwest. And so we have a case that came in where a young lady and her daughter, who's 18 years old, the mom is mixed race, her mom is white, but her pigmentation, she could pass for white. So those of us know what that means. So she was on the, and it's during the COVID, right? So everyone's required to wear a mask, and her daughter was wearing a mask. However, she noticed that most of the white passengers were not. And so she asked for the airline stewardess she pointed them out and said, you know, could you please make sure they wear their mask before we take off in flight like everyone else. And so the individuals who weren't wearing a mask overheard it. And so before the stewardess even made it to them, they made a fuss and they reversed the tables on her and said she is the one creating the problem, and she is the one that should be dealt with. And so the stewardess did end up going back to the mom and daughter, and but she insisted that she needed to do something, and because of her insistence, they told her and her daughter that they were not welcome on the plane.
Wow.
And and asked them to leave the airplane. During their exit off the plane, those passengers began to cheer and clap as they walked away. Now, the mom did tell me that her daughter, excuse me, Pastor Banks and any of the other ministers that are on this call, but the daughter did, well, I won't use the full word, the daughter did say F you to the passengers on her way out. You know, anyway, that wasn't a big deal to me based on the totality, what was happening on the flight. But what also happened prior to them being exited off the flight, there was an attorney sitting behind her, white female, that gave her her business card, and that attorney asked for her contact information because she felt terrible what was happening to her on the plane, her and her daughter, but she didn't say anything. There were other passengers on that flight who also felt bad about what happened to her and their daughter, but didn't say anything. So they got the information from the attorney of who she was. And so collectively, all of those individuals wrote letters to support her, and all of those letters have reached our office with the NAACP. So I have since, in addition to that, just at the end, she had asked for her luggage to come back. They couldn't do it. When it did finally come back, she asked them to send it to her home. They wouldn't do it. She had to go out there and get it. She asked for a refund for her flight. They told her it was a non-refundable flight. So yes, are we going after monetary? Yes, but there's a bigger picture of the injustice of what happened to her on the flight. So as we start peeling back this issue with this young lady and her daughter and all the people involved, you may start to hear some noise from the local NAACP in Southwest, unless Southwest decide to squash it before the story gets totally out. But I'm telling the story as we are going through the process so that, one, my executive committee members know what we're doing. We have many cases on hand. Not all of them reach media level, but every now and then there's a case that I'm feeling in the gut of my stomach that may reach that. And so when that happens, I like to put it out there so you'll be aware that it's in our camp. And so we are moving forward, and we do have attorneys involved with this one. Any questions?
I
Glad we're
saw
doing.
I saw the video that the woman, it was very nicely documented her, what she had to go through. And it was, Southwest supposedly has a policy that Southwest couldn't show her, or they couldn't find, but they quoted, we have a policy, and your dress is not the way you have dressed is not appropriate for flight. So they're regulating, they're regulating that. That's the first I've heard of it, but she documented it on video very
Okay,
well.
that's the second one. There's two Southwest ones. I know what you're talking about. There's two. This is the documented one as far as the non-professional dress for Southwest. Hasn't reached the local branch yet. It hasn't reached us. But the one that I just told you about has reached our branch. But I do know what you're talking about because I did have an attorney call me. I thought it was one of the same. And then I found out this was a second incident with Southwest. But I know what you're talking about. This is two different incidents, but I know what you're talking about, Leon.
Well, thank you for the clarity.
You're welcome. Was there another question?
The only question I had. Oh.
Go ahead, Rory.
Thank you. When I got on the Southwest, I was told I had to have a mask. Now, that's my last flight I went on. That was just 2 weeks ago. But I noticed that I was told to have a mask by an attendant, but some of the whites on the plane, Caucasians, if you will, didn't, and they weren't told the same thing. So there is definitely a disparity there, Betty, because I was told to wear a mask. I had my mask, but some whites had no mask, and they weren't told anything. So that was 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
So I support what you're trying to do.
Wow, interesting. So this is a bigger issue. This is a much bigger issue. Okay. So as far as the president's summary, if I could tell you everything that went on this past month, it will take all day, but I just wanted to get those 3 points out. At this time, we're going to go into the new business, and I am going to, under new business, it says nominating committee, and the chair of the nominating committee is Velma Sykes, and so I will bring Velma forward to give her report.
Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Velma Sykes, and I was the chair of the nominating committee. We met on October the 5th, 2020 at, at 6 p.m. The nominating committee of the branch is pleased to submit the following nominations. President, Betty Williams. First Vice President, Ardell Harrison. Second Vice President, Ken Nelson. Third Vice President, Velma Sykes. Secretary, Stacy Anderson. Treasurer, Daphne Gautier. Assistant Treasurer, Shirley Brown. Members at large, Valerie Scruggs, Malachi Smith, Lynn Berkeley Baskin, Pastor Alice Baber Banks, Dr. Nate White, Dr. Dana Berry, LaMills Garrett, Teron Irvins, Tijuana Barnes, Deshaunus Gray, Lorraine Moore, Micah Coleman, Leon Guidry. That is my report.
Comments is RDO.
Yes.
That's the list. I second that.
Hold on, Ardell. There was not a motion. There was
Right.
no motion.
As
She just
chair-
did her report.
As
I'm sorry.
chair,
You're in and out. Go ahead.
as chair of the nominating committee, I move that by proxy of this October vote, that we accept this report as the 2021-22 Executive Committee.
I second that.
Okay. This is RDO. I second it.
Amen.
Okay, it was actually already seconded by Pastor Banks.
Okay.
And so at this point, we have a motion that has been moved by the chair of the nominating committee and second by Pastor Banks. Discussion? Then I'm going to call for the vote if there's no discussion. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposition? So moved. So let me tell you what just happened. There was no opposition for the slate that was presented by the nominating committee to run for 21-22 executive committee. And by there not being any opposition, the motion that was moved by the chairperson, Ms. Sykes, was to just accept it as is versus going through an entire election process because there's no opposition. And so you voted yes for that to happen. So with that being said, that's what has happened. However, if any of you on this call is ever interested to support or be part of the executive committee meeting, please chat or call or text or email me or put in the chat box and say, hey, what would it take for me to be part of it? I'd be interested in being part of your executive committee. And what does that mean? And so I'll tell you what that means. It means that in addition to this meeting every second Saturday, we have our executive committee meeting on the first Thursday of every month, where the details of all the committee work is really, the onion is pulled back in those committees on, and then we put it in a summary to bring it to you on Saturdays. But you will be appointed to committees at that time. Normally I work with people when they're passions, and whatever that is, we will have training. So in the past, pre-COVID, we have normally gone, I've had my executive team go outside of Sacramento, put them up in hotel suites, and we spend a weekend on leadership training every January/February. Depending on COVID, I don't know what that looks like next year. I don't know what that looks like. So, but even if you don't totally understand the details of the NAACP, you will understand after that training. It's such a great training. It teaches you the bylaws of NAACP, Robert Rules of Order of how we run our meetings, the goals that we would like to set for those 2 years, financially and otherwise, and the things we would like to get involved with as far as growing our youth component as well. So although we end a portion of it here, it doesn't stop. So if anyone is interested in being part of the executive committee in the future, just put it in the chat. I may not see it, but I know the secretaries will, and they'll get the information to me, and I'll follow up with you, because I do have appointment power to place additional people on the executive committee. So any questions at this point on this agenda item? Nada?
No.
Nah. Okay. Okay. I can't see the agenda. So after the report, after the nominating committee, what's next? Lorraine or Stacy or Valerie, tell me
It
what's
says new
next.
business.
Pardon me?
It says new business after you do the NAACP election process, which you just explained, Betty.
Okay. And so what's under new business?
New business, A is a town hall
I see you,
presentation.
Angela. Okay.
Town
Go
hall
ahead.
presentation, Sacramento County District 3 race propositions, well, the town hall presentation.
Okay. 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 At this point, we are going to prepare. Oh, a little early, but we're gonna. That's good. That gives everybody a little bit more time. Okay, I see you, Larissa, and Angela. We are going to transition into our town hall, and I'm going to ask Lynn, do we have our presenters ready to go? So as Lynn is preparing for that, so what's going to happen is that we're going to have, you will be able to hear from the two candidates that are running for the County Board of Supervisors. I had a little speech I written up and I can't find it for the same life right now, but so I'm going to shoot from the hip. But what I can tell you as far as the board of, or the County Board of Supervisors within Sacramento, that's a area where a large amount of our monies are.
Executive committee, specifically the WIN committee. She's not. Yeah, no.
Can you hear me? Hello? Hello?
I hear you.
Okay, I thought I heard Velma. Okay. So for example, when the CARES money came in for the COVID for small businesses, or not just small businesses, just all, the city of Sacramento had $89 million to distribute. The county of Sacramento had close to to $250 million to distribute. Billion with a B. And so we need to be conscious of the large amounts of monies that the county has. And we're always at the city. We're always fighting at the city level and never paying as much attention as we need to be at the county level. And so we need to be conscious of the people who are in those seats. Now, Susan Peters is not running this term, and she decided to retire or to do something different. And as a result, the seat became open. And so we now have two people running for that seat that's going to be part of that's received on a state and federal level. And so we want to make sure that as we hear these two gentlemen fight for our votes, because they're in the county, we need to make the decision who's best for us. So without having my script, Lynn, does that work?
Could I make a quick comment, Betty, on the point that you made? This is Rory.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. To everyone, the county is so important now, also because of education. The County Office of Education, Board of Supervisors deal with that, and the Sheriff's Office. So, and the DA. So
I have a, excuse me, Rory, I do have a whole preface that I'd like to do about that. Is that okay?
No problem. I yield.
I appreciate it. Thank you. And I do see that both candidates are here. Mr. Desmond, Mr. Fishman, thank you for joining us. I hope everyone can scroll on your screen and see them. They are on screen right now. I do think that they're both on their phone too. They did give me a heads up ahead of time that they're out both canvassing in their areas or meeting their candidate requirements right now. So I'm going to give me a minute here. So I'm switching back and forth. Thank you, Betty, too, for the great introduction. And Rory, you're absolutely right. This race is one of the most important in our region. And so the County of Sacramento has a budget of almost $6.5 billion as compared to the city. The city has $1.3 billion. So that gives you an idea. And this is all money that goes back to us. Of course, the city dollars stay in the city and the county dollars include the city. And so I think we have to make sure that we understand all of these dollars affects us. We're an ecosystem, we work together. And so the Sacramento County has 5 elected supervisors. Currently, we have supervisors Cerna, Kennedy, Frost, Natoli, and Peters. As Betty said, Susan Peters' seat is up for election. And these 5 members vote collectively as a board on important issues around funding and are supporting businesses, education, as Rory said, youth, the sheriff, Rory covered that, the district attorney budget, the public defender's budget, the jails, those budgets, housing, many of the housing projects, Department of Human Assistance, which, you know, that supports everyone, and basically our quality of life issues throughout our entire county. The 3rd district, which is our candidates today are the 3rd district, currently held by Supervisor Peters, includes the unincorporated communities, oops, hold on, my screen went blank, of Arden Arcade, Carmichael, Fair Oaks, Foothill Farms, and North Highlands, parts of Antelope, Rancho Cordova, parts of Rancho Cordova, as well as the neighborhoods of Campus Commons, College Greens, and Glenbrook in the city of Sacramento. And Mr. Fishman and Mr. Desmond, if I've made any errors in that, you'll correct me, of course. I would like to welcome you today. And we understand that you have a hard stop at 11:30. So we have crafted our next 30 minutes or so. We might end a little early. We might have a little time for questions, but possibly not. And so we'll do our best to honor your time and also try and squeeze in a couple of questions, but I don't want people to count on those questions. So Greg Fishman is registered as a Democrat, and Rich Desmond is registered as no party candidate at this time. And we'll open with individual statements, about 4 to 5 minutes each. And Mr. Desmond, I'm going to ask you to start us off for your statement. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Lynn, and thank you everybody for letting me meet with you for a few moments this morning. I really appreciated the forum that we're able to have in person during the primary. It's always my preference to meet folks in person and have those in-person communications. That's how you build relations, but this is what we're left with, and appreciate you still doing this. And I'm sorry that I'm probably the one that's kind of rushing in between events here. So thanks for accommodating my schedule too, Lynn. It's an honor, really an honor to be talking with you today. I am a lifelong resident of this district. And Lynn did a great job describing the district. It's a very large district, a very unusual supervisory district for the state of California, right? I mean, usually urban unincorporated areas, over time they either get annexed or they incorporate. This is I think, a unique district in the state of California because it's such a large urban unincorporated area, and the county provides all the municipal services to 95% of the folks in this district. It's also a very, very diverse district in terms of the demographics of the district, the income in the district, and very unique needs of the different communities. The folks in Fair Oaks, as Lynn described, that's in the eastern part of the district. Their needs are much different from the needs of folks in West Arden Arcade or North Highlands. And so I think it's so important to have a supervisor that's involved and engaged and understands the needs, these unique needs of the communities throughout the district. I'm the youngest of, not only am I a lifelong member of the district, born and raised in Carmichael, I am the youngest of 9 kids. I'm a 5th generation Sacramento County resident, and I love this community. I've been involved and engaged in volunteer activities and serving on boards and commissions most of my life in Sacramento County. I just retired after a little over 24 years in the California Highway Patrol, and I'm very proud of my experience and commitment to public safety, but I'm also just as proud as the involvement I had in the Highway Patrol in working on state legislation that makes law enforcement better. I was the legislative liaison for the Highway Patrol for over 4 years, and in that role I worked with the NAACP, ACLU, Democrats, Republicans, law enforcement labor groups, other stakeholders, the governor's office, on reforms related to more training for mental illness, officers getting training for handling someone with a mental illness, working on more transparency. I work with Dr. Weber's office on AB 953, which is better demographic data collection on law enforcement. These are the kinds of legislative efforts that has improved California law enforcement. We have a heck of a lot more work to do, obviously, with reforming law enforcement, making it better, and improving relations with the communities law enforcement serves. But I think that's good experience I bring with me to the supervisor position. I decided to run because I love the community and became very frustrated at, I think, the lack of responsiveness and engagement on the issues that are challenges to us in our community, especially homelessness, declining commercial corridors, kind of neglect in a lot of communities throughout the district, including things as simple as just the condition of our roadways. COVID-19 has actually made all of these things worse. And now the biggest priority is keeping us all safe. But these are going to be my priorities, those issues, and being an elected official who is responsive and understands the needs of the district. This is such a crucial race. I mean, it's important, I think, to keep balance on the Board of Supervisors. And I think as we emerge from the COVID-19 pandemic, I think it's important to have a leader who has a record in getting things done, solving problems in a collaborative way. And that is something I have certainly done at the state level and shown a long history of leadership and getting folks to the table who may not agree on everything, but I think by working together in good faith, we can solve most of our problems. You'll hear Greg, and we share a lot of the same issues, I think a lot of the same priorities, but I think one distinct difference between the two of us is that I am an independent. And I think that's important. This is a nonpartisan seat, and I think we have enough partisan politics, and I'm very proud that I have Democratic and Republican supporters and everyone in between, because I'm going to put the needs of our community, our communities and individuals in the communities above partisan politics. And I think that's something important to come with that mindset. I look forward to working with you, with the NAACP and with other advocacy groups, and working with you and working hard for you to solve the problems in our communities. And I'm someone who's a very open-minded, open door type person. And I will always be ready, willing, and able to sit down and listen with you and try to solve our problems. And just appreciate the chance to have a discussion with you today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Desmond. Mr. Fishman, your 5 minutes.
All right, thank you, Lynn, for putting this together, and to the NAACP, and obviously to everybody who's here on the call. Thank you for spending a little bit of your Saturday morning with us, trying to figure out who really is the best person to represent District 3 and to sit on that 5th seat on the Board of Supervisors. My name is Greg Fishman. I'm currently serving on the SMUD Board of Directors, and I'm really proud of the role that SMUD plays in our community. We're keeping your lights on. We're keeping your rates about 35% lower than other utilities. We're doing the right thing for the environment. We have some great programs for people at the lower end of the income scale to make sure that they're able to pay their bills. We do have a bill reduction program. We're also making sure that nobody's power is being turned off right now because of COVID-19. We've committed to doing that, keeping that in place at least through the end of this year, and we'll revisit it as needed. So I've served on the SMUD board for 6 years, and I think SMUD's really one of the best respected public agencies in the region. And I'm really looking forward to taking that same, again, sense of collegiality and problem solving to the Board of Supervisors. I also worked for 6 years for the California State Association of Counties. So I have a really deep understanding of what county government really does for people, how it gets that work done, the type of programs that really work for county government, what a county supervisor does. I've worked side by side with some of the best county supervisors in the state on programs that are really working for their communities in their agencies. And including my boss at the time was Matt Cate, who was the former Secretary of Corrections, who was the architect of AB 109 that kind of changed the way counties and the state relate to each other relative to law enforcement. I know firsthand that there's some counties out there that are doing great things to reduce the number of people in their jail population with pretrial services, with pre-release services, with some really innovative thinking and collaboration between the sheriff, the probation department, the district attorney, the public defender. It's not happening here in Sacramento County the way that it should. And it's one of the things that we'll talk about a little bit more. And it's one of the things that I really want to make sure and get to work on. I've lived in Sacramento County for 40 years. I came here to go to school at Sac State, and I was a journalist early in my career, and I'm really proud of that as well. Keeping government accountable. I actually covered Sacramento County government for several years, and so this was back quite a while ago now, but I'm really proud of that as well. I'm also active in the community. The award you see behind me, MLK 365, that was given to me about 10 years ago because a group of my neighbors and I got together, and I kind of led the effort to make it easier to get rid of racially restrictive clauses in covenant codes and restrictions on our property paperwork. It's ugly language, and it's been unenforceable for a long time, but you still had to sign your name to it. And it really, the language in my neighborhood said that nobody could live here except people of the white Caucasian race unless they were a domestic servant, and then it was okay. So we were able to pass a new state law that made it easier to get rid of that language, and we did a redaction ceremony and got rid of all of that language in my neighborhood, and that state law is still in place, making it a little bit easier. I think it could still be even better, and I'm working with Assemblyman Ken Cooley on potential legislation next year to look at that and see if there's a way to make it even easier to strike all of that language from property records. I'm endorsed by a wide variety of people, and I'm really proud of that I helped Portia Middleton get elected to her position on the Citrus Heights City Council. I was one of her early supporters. I'm proud that she is now a supporter of mine. I'm also endorsed by Paula Villasquez on the San Juan School Board, Phil Cerna on the Board of Supervisors, Ami Berra, our congressman for most of this district, Ken Cooley, as I mentioned, and Assemblyman Kevin McCarty. So I've been in the community. I've been an active volunteer. I've planted more than 2,000 trees in a program that I led here in my neighborhood and throughout Arden Arcade, working with the Sacramento Tree Foundation. So again, a history of service to the community, a history of working with a broad spectrum of people to get things done, working on the SMUD board, and real direct county government experience. I'm the only one in this race with that level of county experience. So I'm going to hit the ground running, be able to make some real significant changes to our community in a very positive way. And I'm looking forward to being able to get to work and doing that with your support. Thanks again for this opportunity, and we'll get into the questions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Fishman. Yes, we will get into these questions. We've actually predetermined, we had a little team sit down and talk about what would be relevant today, since we don't have much time. So you will have 3 minutes each to answer these questions. We have two. The first one's quite a long context setting question, and I'll begin reading that one now. The county pays out tens of millions of dollars per year in lawsuits against the county because of inappropriate behavior by county sheriffs. Currently, there is a federal consent decree called Mays v. County of Sacramento, where the county was found liable by the federal court for inhumane jail conditions at the main jail. The decree also documented with recommendation that the jail's population is too high and should be reduced. There has been pushback by the sheriff, county executive, and others who were both responsible for preventing the situation and responsible for fixing it. It has been over a year and there is no jail reduction plan in place, nor are the inhumane conditions being addressed. What will you do to hold the county executive, district attorney, and sheriff responsible for meeting the federal consent decree? And we're going to start with Mr. Desmond.
I'm off mute here. Thank you, Lynn, for the question. First of all, I want to start with the first part of the question about misconduct by sheriff's deputies and the cost to the county from that. It's not only a financial cost, it's certainly a cost to the community, the ones who are victims of this kind of misconduct, and that's intolerable. I spent several years working in internal affairs for the Highway Patrol, so I dealt with I investigated a lot of misconduct by law enforcement officers, and whenever one officer treats a member of the public poorly, commits misconduct, any kind of misconduct, whether it's simple discourtesy or some kind of use of force issue, that is inexcusable, and we need to hold these officers accountable. I'm happy that, and you know, Sacramento County it's not unique. I mean, this does happen in a lot of law enforcement agencies. We struggled in the CHP with these issues as well, and I think in a lot of large organizations that happens. But when it happens in a law enforcement context, a lot of times the results are horrible and tragic. I'm glad there have been some real reforms over the last few years in making it easier to hold officers accountable, in chipping away of some of the provisions in the Public Safety Officers Bill of Rights to open up some of these peace officer records. I'm glad that Assemblymember Mike Gibson is chairing a new committee on police reform, and one of their biggest priorities is to create a decertification process, so law enforcement officers who do commit misconduct in one agency can't just simply go get a job somewhere else. So I think that's important, and we need to do a better job in Sacramento County, and I look forward to bringing some of my experience to hold officers accountable in Sacramento County. When it comes to the Mays consent decree, I read the entire court case. I've read all the recommendations. I read everything that was pointed out by the independent investigator that came out. These are things that absolutely have to change. A reduction in the population, and just as importantly, changes to the facility and changes to practices and procedures in getting proper mental health treatment for folks who need it, who are incarcerated, proper medical care better practices with respect to solitary confinement and other things like that. And there were great recommendations put out there. And I don't know, I mean, the pushback, that's something that I'll be very, very focused on, is where the pushback is coming from and why there has not been a plan yet. I will demand that from the sheriff. I think it's good that the court has retained jurisdiction in this matter, and you ask, how can the board hold them accountable for making sure they comply with the consent decree? Ultimately, the court has the ability to issue sanctions and hold these elected officials who have to comply with this order in contempt if they don't comply. So that's kind of the biggest accountability measure. With respect to the board, obviously the board has the ability during the budget process to ask the hard questions, to hold up the budget if they don't get satisfactory questions about why they have not complied with these certain provisions. But I also want to pivot to a few things, is that it's important for me that we try to avoid people getting involved in the criminal justice system to begin with. I'm very happy to have the endorsement from the Reverend James Shelby, and he and I have had many, many discussions about the need for more youth programs, the need for more job opportunities in some of the disadvantaged communities in District 3, the need for more intervention programs for some of our most at-risk youth. I plan to rely on him heavily if I win this election to invest in these communities, invest in these kind of programs, so our young people and all people in the communities avoid getting involved in the criminal justice system to begin with. And then if they do, pardon me?
You just have a couple seconds. Keep going.
Okay, the other
seconds.
thing, I think that if someone unfortunately is involved in the system, we need to make sure that Sacramento County has invested in good reentry, rehabilitation, educational, vocational programs. And I think some good things are being done out of the branch jail, the Rio Consumas Correctional Center, but more can be done. And I look forward to working with the NAACP on your recommendations on what more we can be doing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Fishman. Would you begin again, sir? You're muted.
I'm sorry about that. Let me start all over again. Thank you for the question. It's obviously one of great importance. I want to point out and preface my answer by saying I've pledged not to take any campaign contributions from law enforcement agencies. And my opponent is benefiting from literally tens of thousands of dollars from the Sacramento County Deputy Sheriff's Association and other law enforcement organizations around the state that want to see him in place. So with that said, you know, I heard a saying the other day, if you want to empty the bucket, first you have to turn off the spigot. And maybe that's a little bit of a flip way of saying we need to incarcerate fewer people to begin with if we want to reduce the number of people in the jail. So I absolutely agree with Rich that we need to work more on job programs, education programs, recreation programs that help keep kids out of the justice system to begin with. But we also know that because we police differently in different neighborhoods, we're incarcerating way more people than need to be. And the incarceration rates are unfair based on skin color, on race, on socioeconomic backgrounds. And that needs to change. There needs to be some fundamental changes in the way we apply our policing in different communities. So there's a lot of different things we need to do. For people with substance abuse disorder, for people with mental illness, for the homeless. Oftentimes they are incarcerated because there is no other alternative, and we need to provide those alternatives, more treatment beds, more homeless shelters, more places for people who are having a mental crisis of some kind or an emotional crisis. That's job one. We need to do more pretrial release programming. So there are evidence-based programs that look at a person and say, okay, we can safely release this person into the community. They're going to come back and go to their court hearing as planned. We can either no bail or very reduced bail. And Sacramento County is doing some of that. It can be more. We need to reinvigorate the court diversion programs for veterans, for people with drug addictions or alcohol problems, and for people with mental illness, and also for youth. There's some of that again going on in Sacramento County. Those drug courts and veterans courts that divert people into programming instead of incarceration are incredibly important, and we need to do more. I think we need to move the sheriffs and the district attorneys' elections to the presidential years. There's an effort to do that. We will get better outcomes from elections when more people are participating and more people are voting. And I think we will get better people in those offices, people that truly understand and reflect the communities that they are serving. So I think that's another key thing. And then I do agree with Rich. We need more pre-release programming as well. If somebody's been incarcerated for a year or more, where are they going to go when they're released? Is there some place where they can live? Do they have a job? Do they have some source of income? Is there any kind of training going on or any kind of pre-release services happening? I think our Sacramento County Sheriff is doing some of that, but not very much. We need to reinvigorate the Community Corrections Partnership that was part of Proposition 109 that helps communicate between the sheriff, the DA, the public defender, the police chief. A variety of community groups can participate in this. Ours hasn't met in 4 years, and on any meaningful agenda. And we need to reinvigorate that process so these people are communicating more and talking a little bit better with each other. Those are just a few of the things that we need to do. Again, it's an economic issue. It's a policing issue, how we apply the police services in our neighborhoods and how that disparity plays out.
We need to wrap up, Mr. Fishman.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I apologize. I'll stop there. We're doing a lot. We need to do more, and we need to do it better.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. We'll move on to question number 2. And I want to acknowledge that there are questions in the chat. And if we can get through these 2 questions, we will try and get to a couple of them. So this is question number 2. Mr. Fishman, we will begin this time with you. Sacramento County is not known for its housing solutions for unhoused and low-income populations. What solutions do you bring to the table, and what is the accountability measure for making sure they work?
Great question again. Homelessness, certainly outside of COVID-19 and getting over the hump there, homelessness is really the key question for our district, for the county in general, for our region. So one, we need to collaborate more. We have the continuum of care that's supposed to be that umbrella organization that makes sure people aren't falling through the cracks. It's working, but there needs to be better coordination, more collaboration between the city of Sacramento, the county of Sacramento, and the other cities in the county. I think, there was an idea floated about a year ago to consider creating a joint powers authority for homelessness, much the way we have a JPA for regional transit and for some of the fire districts and water and sewer. This homelessness is a regional problem, and I wasn't sure that we needed the JPA structure. It is a little bit more of a bureaucracy, but I think that's one way that we can hold people accountable by creating that JPA, and I'm more and more interested in looking at that as a real possible solution. But beyond that, for housing in particular, we need to get out of the way of the developers that would build affordable housing and instead provide incentives for them to do so. There's a lot of things that we can offer to a developer if they are willing to offer things back to the community. For example, infill development, mixed use, which is kind of the coming thing and provides a lot of real benefits, transit oriented, all electric because that's good for the environment, and with an affordable housing component. And I absolutely am in favor of reinstating an affordable housing element in every new housing project as a requirement, not just that you can pay your way out of it. I think we need to actually put some units in every new housing project. For those positive attributes that we get from a developer, if they're willing to include those things, we can offer them incentives, including a higher density, which increases their bottom line a little bit. We can give them priority scheduling for permitting and for inspections. We can potentially reduce or even eliminate some of the impact fees that are a barrier for housing development right now. I'm sorry, I'm done. There's a lot we can do in providing incentives to get the kind of housing that we need. And I haven't even talked about actually addressing homelessness. I apologize, it's a short time frame.
Thank you, thank you. Mr. Desmond.
Thank you, Lynn. And Housing is such a huge issue. I think I want to preface it with this district, especially the northwest Arden Arcade area and parts of Carmichael. There's a very high concentration of low income and subsidized housing in this district. A lot of low income apartment complexes. So I want to kind of start with that kind of housing and kind of the housing that doesn't provide wraparound services for folks experiencing homelessness. So I'll start with that. We do need more of it. We do need to be cognizant of not trying to put more or overburden any one community or neighborhood with more low income housing projects. I think it needs to be spread out proportionately throughout the district. I think Greg is right. We need to look at ways to bring more infill development in creative ways. And whether that's incentivizing, there already are state incentives that exist for higher density housing, but making sure it's in the right places next to commercial corridors with easy access to transit, making sure we explore mixed use options, making sure we get the county bureaucracy to work in a more customer service oriented way with a lot of these developers. I'm very proud to have the endorsement from the North State BIA and other and specific infill developers who do this kind of work. And they tell me all the time, there are opportunities. There's more they could be doing in Sacramento County, but the bureaucracy has become very, very difficult to work with. And so something I will be doing, which is like I did at the state level, get government to be more responsive to the community needs so we can get more affordable housing built. When it comes to housing for the homeless, I think it's just like homeless is such a multifaceted issue and a multifaceted problem. We have to have multifaceted housing options for folks experiencing homelessness. And maybe that's having more scattered site shelters like Sacramento Self-Help Housing is doing, where they acquire an actual home in a neighborhood and turn it into a 5-bed shelter with support services. The great thing about this model is you can site these in different places throughout the community without having a negative impact on the community. There hasn't been one complaint from neighbors of these scattered site shelters. Maybe that's appropriate in more areas in this district. Exploring more smaller shelters, maybe low barrier shelters, and maybe some shelters that have restrictions before you can come into these shelters. What I want to do is take advantage of Project Room Key, which is kind of a jump start in getting more homeless off the streets and into supportive housing, and inventorying what we have in District 3 in Sacramento County, also inventorying county property that might be available for some of these smaller, for hotel conversions and shelters, maybe a 50-bed shelter, maybe a car type shelter. And the other thing I want to do is make sure that we put proper resources to preventing someone from becoming homeless. I want to explore recreating a county rental control board, or maybe calling it a landlord-tenant mediation board, where we can avoid or have a venue for tenants who are experiencing eviction or experiencing issues to go to this third-party administrative board to try to resolve problems before they have to end up in the courtroom. There's a lot more we can be doing, a lot more we can do. Thank you.
So this is great. I'm hoping that the two of you, are you both okay for another 9 or 10 minutes?
Yep.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, great. So we will have some time to answer some of the questions that are in the chat. I'll go back to Tehran, if you could unmute yourself and very briefly ask your question.
Sure. Good morning, gentlemen. My name is Tehran Evans, and my question is, how would either one of you be able to work with law enforcement to ensure that they have a great relationship with the community, and or create some type of executive board to work local community members sit on this board in order to work with local law enforcement officers to make sure that the community is safe and protected, that law enforcement is being respected within the community, and number two, there's a great working relationship, because there's lots of distrust within the AA community with law enforcement, given the political climate, as well as racism currently happening here in America.
Mr. Desmond, why don't we start with you?
And thank you.
Excuse me 1 second, I will add back your time. I just want to make sure that we have, maybe shorten them, maybe 2 minutes each. Thank
Got
you.
it. Thank you, Tarang. Great question. Yeah, I absolutely support creating some kind of board or committee that works on that very issue. I spent a lot of time in the Highway Patrol working on we called it a public trust initiative, statewide initiative. And that was a partnership between the Highway Patrol, the department, and the labor organization. The NAACP, Alice Hoffman was involved in working with Commissioner Farrow at the time and developing this initiative. When I started as a CHP liaison, it was right after a former CHP officer who had been fired had actually assaulted an African-American woman on the freeway down in Los Angeles. So the first thing I did as the new legislative liaison was to meet with every member of the Black Caucus at the state capitol and start forging relationships with them and working with them on real meaningful changes we can make within the Highway Patrol and within the state of California on the legislative front. That's the same approach that I'm going to take here at the local level. I've been participating. Actually, I first met Lynn at a Student Voices event hosted by Impact SAC. And that was a way to get members of the community to sit down and talk with law enforcement leaders, both the sheriff, probation, district attorney's office, and others. Sit down and hear from young people in the community. What are your concerns? What can law enforcement do to be more responsive to you? Those kinds of programs we need to expand dramatically, because I say this to my law enforcement friends: Black lives matter. And if members of the Black community feel like their lives don't matter to law enforcement, that is a failure to law enforcement, and law enforcement needs to fix that. And I will be right there with you, Tehran, at the NAACP at the forefront in improving those relationships, improving trust, and reforming the Sheriff's Department so we can build that trust.
Thank you, Mr. Desmond. Mr. Fishman.
We absolutely need to have some kind of a citizens review board that works with the Sheriff's Department, not just to provide an incident review, a critical incident review, but I think that's part of it. If there is a police shooting of some kind that merits that kind of review, I think there should be some citizen involvement in that. But more than that, it should also be the conduit for communication and collaboration between the Sheriff's Department and the community. I will absolutely work to foster that. So let's talk about involving people from certainly organizations like the NAACP, but also from the new immigrant populations that are so prevalent in District 3. We have a huge Slavic community. We have a huge Afghan community. We have some Southeast Asians, not as much as in South Sacramento areas, but we need to reach out to those people, those groups through the churches, and there are some civic organizations that specialize in working with those groups, and say, participate in this with us. Let's foster a communication and some dialogue before we need to do that kind of critical incident review that the board can also do. Another thing I'd like to look at is providing an incentive for sheriff's deputies to live in the community where they're working. Right now, most sheriff's deputies do not live in Sacramento County. They live elsewhere. If we can provide some kind of housing bonus or some additional benefit to them to live in the community, I think that's really important too. They're going to get to know people. And, does it have to be right on the patrol area that they're serving? Maybe not. But let's look at least in Sacramento County. Let's get them involved in the community. Let's get them here more often when they're not just working. Let's get them living here as well. I think that's really important. So I absolutely agree with Supervisor Patrick Kennedy, who has called for a citizens review board. I would work with him to implement that. We need to bring the Sheriff's Department and the community closer together.
Thank you, Mr. Fishman. Angela, would you please unmute yourself and ask your question? I think that will be the last one.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Let me scroll up. Okay, my question is, what is your position on releasing people from jail during the pandemic who are there only because they can't meet bond? Isn't that in the best interest of law enforcement safety as well?
Mr. Fishman, let's start with you this time. Your 2 minutes, sir.
Sure. Look, you have to look at each person as an individual, and if it's just because they can't meet bond for a drunk driving or a parole violation or probation violation of some kind, that's one thing. If they can't meet their bond, but they've been accused of some significant violent crime, that's a different story. But the point is, Angela, there are these evidence-based programs that other counties do use for pretrial release, and they evaluate the individual based on a lot of different factors. Where do they live? What are their ties to the community? Are they employed? What was their crime? What's their record look like? What is the likelihood that they're going to show up in court? And make a decision based on that about who is safe to release and who's not. These programs really work. They reduce jail populations. They reduce recidivism, actually, because people who are released get to keep their job. They get to keep their families intact. They get to keep their homes intact. And so I absolutely agree with you, especially now in times of COVID. More people need to be evaluated for that and probably released. But it has to be done to make sure that the public safety is also protected. But these evidence-based programs that other counties are using actually do work.
Thank you, Mr. Fishman. Mr. Desmond.
Good question. During COVID, obviously, as you're well aware, there's been a release of a lot of prisoners in state prisons and also at the local level. And the primary reason for that is to slow the spread or relieve some of their exposure to the spread of COVID-19. And in addition to that, there's been a zero bail directive came down from the state Supreme Court Justice, Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, and it's still in place in Sacramento County. So, and I think in some circumstances that is a good thing. I think what I'm seeing out there and talking to a lot of small business owners in Sacramento County is it's a challenge, because even if someone maybe commits a misdemeanor vandalism or theft many times, it's very hard to hold them accountable. So at some point we need to revisit that while still keeping folks who are incarcerated safe from COVID-19. But we also need to, I think, one of the big fundamental changes in the criminal justice system in the last several years was Prop 47, Prop 57. And as you know, that changed the penalty for a lot of crimes in the state of California. And that's a good thing because it resulted in a lot less people being incarcerated for minor offenses. The problem is a lot of times folks were directed into diversionary programs like a drug court or a mental health court or a veterans court, these other places they could get meaningful treatment. So they wouldn't have been involved in the criminal justice system at all. So I think what we need to do a better job of is how do we get people into these programs that would prevent them from being incarcerated or being involved in any kind of criminal activity to begin with, and become more successful, more productive members of the community. And those are things that I will be certainly investing in and looking at with NAACP and in collaboration with the city and with the county.
Thank you, Mr. Desmond. I think that's all the questions we'll be able to take today, but I would like to give you each 1 minute to wrap up. Mr. Desmond, I will start with you.
Thank you, Lynn. It's really appreciate the discussion. I know this is such a tough time that we're doing this online. I would really appreciate the opportunity to be able to work with you on some of these complex issues that we're facing. I do think that, even though I am the person who has the support of the law enforcement community, I'm very proud of that. And Greg asked for the support from the deputy sheriffs, and they supported me. And I think it's important to be able to work with them, whether it's a law enforcement labor organization, a teachers labor group, any kind of labor group. We need to be able to work together. I've been the member of a labor organization, the Association of Highway Patrolmen, for many years. But that will not make me beholden to law enforcement labor or any special interest group, a political party or a developer or otherwise. I will be working with leaders and members in the community to work on our problems and make our communities stronger and make our communities better. And I would appreciate you consider voting for me on November 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Mr. Fishman, you have the last word.
All right. Well, let me correct one thing Rich said. Yes, I met with the Deputy Sheriff's Association before the election, before the primary, knowing full well that their support would go to Rich based on his law enforcement career. But it's important to be able to sit down with people that you disagree with. I met with Sheriff Scott Jones about a year ago now or so, and we sat down and had a very, very nice conversation. We disagree on a lot of things, but it was worth having that conversation. And I can sit down and have those difficult conversations with people and find some common ground. We may not agree on everything, but I can make that happen. I have a history of working with minority communities to make things happen, to make our community better. Again, 6 years of service on the SMUD board and 6 years of service with the California State Association of Counties. So I have real experience in county government. I understand how counties work, what they do, how they do it, and what county supervisors do. And I'm looking forward to hitting the ground running. I'm a 40-year resident of this area. I love this community, and I'm looking forward to serving it in this new and different way. Thanks very much for your time.
Mr. Desmond, Mr. Fishman, thank you so much for joining us today. On behalf of the Greater Sacramento NAACP, we appreciate your community service.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to move on to our proposition discussion. You're welcome to stay if you'd like. This is both Mr. Fishman and Mr. Desmond, you're both welcome to stay if you'd like. So we are going to move on to our proposition discussion. Let's see, I'm going to switch screens, so give me a second here. Betty, did you want to interject anything in the meantime while I'm switching?
Thank you, Lynn. You're doing a great job. And I don't know if the two gentlemen are still on, but whether they are on or not, I thank them both for taking time out of their busy schedule. This is the last mile about when it comes to election time. And so I know they're busy on the phones, knocking on doors, still trying to raise money, and in the heat of the election. I hope everyone on this call was able to hear both sides and that you wrote down their names because they are part of the county. Mostly everyone on this call will see their name. Well, if you live in District 3, let's put it that way, will see their name. And so you will have the choice or the opportunity to vote for one or the other. And a lot of times we don't hear from our county board of supervisors. And really, I think our membership for asking some of the great questions, I was able to see some of those questions in the chat room, and they were right on. They were really, really good. The last piece I probably should have asked him was about, they do have an oversight type committee called SOCAP, which is weak and dysfunctional in my humble opinion. So the fact when you were asking question about oversight commission and trying to create something like that, the fact that neither one of them mentioned that they did have one existing, or I didn't hear that, or I don't remember hearing that from either one, concerns me, but that's okay. The one that we put in office, we need to make sure if they're going to maintain that particular oversight, the SOCAB, which is they get the opportunity to choose 3 people on that committee. Each county board of supervisors choose 3 people from their area to have a voice. What you do need to know is that the NAACP is an ex officio member, so we're a member for life. But since they started up again, they have not invited NAACP or ACLU, which I also made them ex officio members when I was chair of ACLU a few years back. So we need to watch that very carefully. And coming 2021, 22, that's one of the areas I would like to see us build stronger through the NAACP and being watchdogs over the county board of supervisors. At this time, I know Lynn is going to be bringing up your screen, and I think the next propositions that we're going to be discussing, is that something Rory is going to be presenting, or who's going to be presenting on that? Lynn, do you know?
Oh, we're both going to go back and forth.
Okay,
And
both of
we
you.
might have a guest. We don't know if she was able to attend. Rory, was our guest able to attend?
No, unfortunately, they have a conflict in their schedule, so they're not able to attend.
Okay, so then we'll move forward just with the proposition, Betty, if that's okay. And
yes.
Okay, so that's what we'll do. And just to kind of, give us a new foundation for this, if I could share my screen, could someone share their screen with me so I can share mine? Or can I just share mine?
Just share yours. Can you just share yours? No?
And I don't know, can you see my screen?
No. Well, maybe it's coming.
Yes, it just started sharing. Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
so you can. Okay, great.
There it goes.
Woohoo! So we're doing great, everyone. So this is our voter guide for propositions. And I just wanted to make everyone aware of this before we actually speak about a few of the propositions on here. But we do have something that you can look at. All of you should have gotten it in your emails. And if you didn't, I don't know what a good process would be. We could just reshare it, I suppose, if you let us know in the chat that people are or are not getting it. But this is basically what the state and our local branch has decided. We added, I'm going to move my screen over so that you can see this side. If you notice the measures, of course, we added to what the state suggested. And right now we're going to start off with Proposition 16 and 17, which Rory's going to be presenting about, just to kind of give us a quick recap. Go ahead, Rory.
Thank you, Lynn, and to the members and everybody. Hello, it's just good to be part of this today. On the propositions, let me just say I appreciated being a part of the committee on this particular issue because the propositions that affect and impact our community is essential for us to know and hopefully vote accordingly. I'll start off, of course, with Proposition 16. Those of you who know the buzzword, the affirmative action, back in, I think it was 1974 or something around that time. They passed it, and it was a restrictive proposition at that time. It's a constitutional amendment that didn't allow from a state in terms of, if you will, quotas in terms of university admissions for college universities in California. It dealt with the restrictions on contracts with contracts with the government for individuals who would like to work with the government. All these things happened with Proposition 16 Prop 209 at the time. Let me slow down a little bit. What we're doing now, and what's supported by the state legislature, by the way, the author of Proposition 16, as most of you know, is Assemblywoman Dr. Shirley Weber, with the complete support of the Congressional Black Congressional, I gave him promotion, California Black Caucus, if you will. The bottom line is we're trying to repeal Proposition 209, return back to affirmative action, so provide access to everyone in California. I do mean everyone, including women, all ethnic genders, to participate in California contracts, programs that California offers, and construction industry, especially, which is predominantly Caucasian. We're trying to get this all repealed back so we can have that opportunity to participate in these kinds of various industries and firms. So we would hope that we supported this proposition. Like I said, the state legislature passed it to get it on the ballot. It's 100% supported by the California Legislative Black Caucus, and it's very important. If anybody has any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. This is a constitutional amendment, I must admit, which means we need the votes in order to change the Constitution of California. So that basically gives you an overview of what 16 is trying to do to repeal Proposition 209. So if there's any questions, I'd love to answer them. We must vote on this. There's a great deal of opposition on this. Some people want to remain the way it is, and they have a thing about changing the California Constitution. So this is a big fight. This is not getting the kind of play you see on TV or radio as such as 22 and 21, but this is an essential proposition we must vote for, and hopefully we'll vote yes for.
Rory, before we take questions, thank you so much. I just want to make sure that we stay on time. It is 11:41, our meeting, so we have approximately 17 or 18 minutes so that we can allow Betty, of course, to have our last word today.
Yes,
so if you wouldn't mind maybe going over Proposition 17 as well, and then accepting maybe one or two questions.
Very quickly, and thank you, Lynn. I will run to my time. 17, ladies and gentlemen, is something that the NAACP itself many years ago, under Betty's leadership and Ms. Hoffman, was fighting for the parole, not probation, be able to vote. And this is supported again by the California legislature, by the California Legislative Black Caucus. Basically, this is the difference between probation and parole in the criminal justice, which means if you're on parole and this proposition is passed, that means once they finish parole or on it, they can vote in an election. Currently, they cannot. Only probation persons can vote in an election, which NAACP has been very instrumental in that. But this is a big one. This is for those people on parole they can vote. I'll read a quick thing real quick. Probation is a part of or time behind bars, but parole begins upon release from prison in advance when their sentence is in. So this, for the many thousands of people on parole and they are qualified, they can vote in your election, be it local or state or national. We urge the people to vote yes on Proposition 17 for the number of people who will be on parole who wants to be citizens again in the state. So I'll stop there. Any questions? Lynn?
Sorry, I don't see the chat right now. So if there are questions, do you see the chat, Rory?
No.
There's no questions.
There are no questions. Wonderful.
Wow.
So
Okay.
this is great. So now is the tough one.
Yeah,
16 and 17, really there's lots and lots of consensus throughout the Black community, throughout the racial justice community, lots of consensus on 16 and 17. The one that we're going to discuss now, there is not a lot of consensus. It's got 3 sides, not 2 sides, and the third side is the issue. So most of our racial justice and Black justice communities agree that there should be no cash bail. It prevents people from justice. We know that many people stay inside of once they're arrested, they cannot get out unless they can afford the bond that is based on the bail amount. And so then what happens is they might sit there, or family members have to come up with the bond and they mortgage their homes, which we know is just not okay. So I think we're on Prop 25, everyone agrees who are part of the Black justice and racial justice world. We all agree on that. Where we disagree is people who want to say yes on Prop 25 are only looking at getting rid of cash bail, believing that what the alternative is. So Proposition 25 replaces cash bail. I don't know, let me move this over. If you can see here where my cursor is, replaces money bail or cash bail with a risk assessment tool for suspects awaiting trial. And that's where we all disagree. It's not on the bond side. We all want to get rid of cash bail, but this side is, this may be worse. And so what I would like to just kind of read to you for a minute, this has not been published yet. And we're thinking that it will be in the Observer. I just got a note from Larry Lee, so I can't actually publish it yet, but I can at least share some things with you. This November, Californians decide whether to end cash bail and replace it with a new system for deciding who stays in or out of jail after being arrested. A yes vote on this proposition will uphold SB 10, a 2018 law to eliminate cash bail. A no vote will reject it, keeping cash bail in place. You should know the NAACP, state and local, are a strong no on this, even though lots of our community partners are a strong yes. So that's why I set the foundation so that we know that. You might expect all groups of progressive community organizers and reformers to support Prop 25 because we actively push for an end to cash bail, but you would be mistaken. Prop 25 would replace bail with a more insidious form of discrimination and would exponentially grow our system of mass incarceration and mass criminalization. And this is affirmed by reports from Harvard, MIT, and about 16 other respected institutions, which you should know going into this vote as you're reading about it and as you're educating yourselves about it, that the state of California has now commissioned Stanford University to do another report because they don't like that all these reports are coming out with the same outcome. And so Stanford now is going to study this alternative because this is a pretrial assessment tool. And rather than go through this whole editorial, what I would like to do, because we're getting kind of close to the end here, 2 things. Tomorrow, what could be worse than cash bail? There is an educational forum, Prop 25. Jaleel Baker, who's on this call. I think he's still on.
Yeah.
Yeah, hi, Jaleel. So
Hey.
Jaleel's been educating himself, and we're trying to work him into this this Sunday event too. But it is education about Prop 25. We invite you to go. I will put the before we leave, I will put the sign up in the chat so that you can go and sign up if you'd like to participate. Excuse me. But mostly it's going to educate us on why this is worse, why the alternative is worse than actually getting rid of cash bail, which is, so it's a really tough decision for everyone. So I invite you to attend this, and I'm actually going to close out with just a little video that you can see. Let's see if I can do this. Give me a second here. So far it's working. It's just taking a moment. Thanks for your patience. And this is from students. A lot of these students are involved with our NAACP in the LA area, and I'd just like you to listen to this.
What is
And as she's preparing, a lot of this puts our folks into the system. They may not be physically in the jail, but they will be in the system.
Ready?
You got it, Lynn?
Can you hear it?
No.
Not well.
No, no.
Okay, hold on. So you can't, I'm so sorry to interrupt you, Betty. I thought
I
you were
was
both
just talking through with giving you time to set this up.
So you can see it though, right? Can everyone see it?
No, it's
I
still the
can't,
voter guide.
no. The voter guide is still up.
Yeah.
Oh.
You would have to probably stop sharing the voter guide.
Yeah.
And then share your screen again.
Okay, hold on. Let me see if I can do this. Thank you for talking me through this. This is the first time I've done a video.
First time.
I've shared screen, but hold on. Okay, so I have to, it says you are screen sharing. So I should stop sharing?
Yes.
And then, so I'm stopping.
And then try again. And then now you'll click the window that when it comes up with a bunch of windows, click the one with the video.
Can you see it now?
No.
Okay, well, this may not work. I don't want to waste anyone's time, but I could try one more time. We do have a couple minutes here. So I should share my screen again. Right there. Can you see it now?
Maybe. Looks like something's trying to come.
Says,
There it
whoa.
goes.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
We
It's
can
coming.
see it. Perfect.
Okay. Go, great. We just can't hear it.
You can't hear it?
No, we can see it.
Okay, one more time. We're almost there. We're almost there, everyone. Thank you for your patience.
That's right.
Uh-oh.
Did you hear it? I stopped it to see if you could hear it.
No, we couldn't.
Well,
You can hear it over there, Lynn.
yes or no? Is it not working?
No.
Not
We
the
see
sound.
the video, but we don't
No
hear it.
sound.
Without
Okay.
sound.
So without sound, it's not worth your time. So I am going to stop this. I will share all of this with everyone on the call. And there we go. Stop. I stopped the screen share. And we're back to usual. And Betty, thank you for letting me interrupt you. I apologize for that. And
No. I was just betting, giving you time.
I appreciate it. And I will, everything that I am sharing with you right now, we will send out in an email. Is that okay, Betty? Is that the best way to do this?
Yeah.
You can also put a link for what you were trying to share, if you put the link in the
Right,
chat.
In the chat.
Right,
get
and I
it
can
from
do
there.
that. There's several links. So should I just put the several links in there? I thought it might be easier if I just do one email, but I could also put several links for people. I could do that while Betty
That would be
closes us
great.
out. Sure.
Yeah, yeah. And just to stay on 25 for a moment, Lynn, and I'm trying to make it somewhat simple where people could understand it. Part of that third leg that you're talking about is that people don't understand, and I'm calling it a program or an option that individuals will be given versus the cash bail, which would put them automatically on probation. They would not have the opportunity to have an attorney. There's no OR like you have right now. And so when being faced with going to jail versus saying you can go home, sign this program, and we'll just put you on probation and everything will be great. The opportunity or the option presented to an individual of going into a dirty jail, they're going to say, I want to take the safe option. I want to take the probation. And the probation puts you in the system. That's your umbilical cord into jail. You may not physically be there, but you will be there from your home. And so that means on applications that you apply for jobs, if it says you're on probation, you're gonna have to put that down. If you're stopped, if the officer asks you, are you in parole, probation, you're gonna have to say that. And so what individuals won't understand, although the rhetoric is saying it will not fill the jails will be lighter. That's true in the physical sense. However, individuals will be incarcerated through the probation program at a larger number than what they are now. So that's one of the things that I don't think people understand when it comes to this cash bail. And like Lynn said, if it was just a cash bail, we would be with everyone else. But when they put this extra piece on it, not explaining to our community that they'll be incarcerated outside the physical jail, that's what we need to educate our folks on.
Thank you, Betty. Yes, and I can even give you an anecdote locally. We are one of the pilots in the state. So Sacramento County is one of the pilots in the state that received $9 million over 3 years to test the tools that they're suggesting in Prop 25 we should use. And what we found over this past year is that we have a 30 to 40% recidivism rate. Not because people are just recidivating. Think about it. If you have to be surveilled by probation, that gives them the right to look at you all the time. So any false move, and you get rearrested. And so, and that actually adds to your charges then, by the way. So we're not just saying that you're going back in for the first thing you did. Now you've got another charge, and that means you have more time if you're found guilty. So this is not something on the long term. On the short term, it sounds really good, like Betty said. If you want to get out really fast, because a lot of people are making that decision, they're saying, well, this way people don't have to pay bail to get out. Well, that is true, but the problem is when somebody's given, by the way, they're not given legal counsel. Public defender is not there. They're in the courtroom. The judge says, Mr. So-and-so, we see that you stole a candy bar. The probation is saying that you stole a candy bar 5 years ago. So we're going to put you on a level 1. You don't seem like you're a big threat to the community. You can leave right now. How does that sound to you, sir? And Mr. Candy Bar Thief will say, yes, that sounds great. I don't want to go back to the jail. And they'll sign on the dotted line. And what they just did is they signed up to be on probation. And then that's it. They're part of the system. So that's how this is actually functioning. So when people say, how could you possibly vote no? Tell them you're not voting no on the bail side. You're voting no on being on probation before even being proven guilty. So I will share the rest. Thank you so much.
Betty, Miss Betty, President, may I propose a question to Lynn?
Yeah.
Okay, but real quick, Lynn, I'm kind of confused on this one, but I'm thinking the way the court system is, regardless, they will catch you up on that type of plea bargaining, if you will. So I'm trying to figure out the Prop 25. So if you take away that, but they still get them anyway, because if they want to convict them without the proper legal advice and attention, they're going to get them on that anyway. So that's kind of like a catch-20. How was it? The catch-22. They can't bail out. They're stuck in there with bail. They can't fight, but then they're still getting caught up. Or they do it the other way and they still get caught up in that system. So
what are you
confused.
suggesting? So let me make sure I understand. Are you suggesting that if we say no, so remember, if we say no, there will still be bail. So what you're saying is if somebody can't make their bond based on bail, then they'd still be stuck inside. We haven't changed anything. Is that right?
They're stuck inside, and then they're still getting that same conviction. They're still coming out on probation or parole, or
So you are right. You are absolutely right. That's the yes side is saying, but they're saying we have to get rid of this terrible, awful thing called money bail, right? Cash bail, because people who can't afford it are not getting out. And the answer is if you vote no, you are voting to keep it the way it is. That is true. The problem is which is worse. And what we're saying is that putting everybody who gets arrested on probation, everybody, is worse than having some stay in jail. So they're both bad. There's no question, Stacy, you're right. These are terrible decisions. So we're saying, yeah, go ahead, Roy.
Real quick, to what Stacy's pointing with the Madam President state, what I have to support the no for once for a person who's been on probation. The reality is this: if you get on probation and you haven't even done nothing, haven't even gone through the adjudication, haven't gone through the process, you're already on probation. That means you already have a record. And if you're a kid, that's going to affect you in the long term. Where the other way, the current way we do it now, yeah, you have to come up with the bail money, and many people try to find the best ways they can. But at least you're not on probation, not already in the system. You have to go through the process. So either way, I have to go down with the no, only because it wouldn't put a person on probation automatically and haven't even gone to court to see if they were innocent or guilty. This way, we keep the cash bail. You're not on probation. If you can, be exonerated, you can move forward your life. And I just feel like, and plus the OR is important. With the new system, you can't get OR. With the cash bail, you still can get OR if you are considered not a threat to society. So I'd have to almost go with the no on 25, just to protect the folks that want to be on probation. That's all.
So for those people who don't know OR, own recognizance.
I'm sorry, on recognizance.
Making sure that what Rory is saying is, oftentimes the judge will say, this is ridiculous. I'm sure you'll come back. You stole a candy bar. Go home. Make sure you come back in 30 days for your court date. And they just tell you to go home.
Yeah.
That's OR.
And at the end of the day, the due process is totally taken away under this piece. You don't have the opportunity to speak to an attorney. And not having the opportunity to speak to an attorney is huge. And if you are being driven by fear, you don't want to go to jail. If your children, your grandchildren, nieces, whoever is under this umbrella, and like I know, if they have a choice of going to jail, they're going to say, hey, I can't reach anybody, I'm taking this, not understanding the total consequences. And that's all. What we are being responsible for is educating our community on the entire portion of this particular proposition. And NAACP doesn't take it lightly on how we, I see Laura saying, how can we legally violate due process? You can in this one. You absolutely can. That's the horrible thing about this. And the commercials aren't saying any of this. If you watch the commercials on either side, it's not saying any of this. And so, and the fact that we were used as an example, and so we have the knowledge more than anyone else throughout the state on how it works. We can really talk from the experiment that they did within it with which is part of us. And so it's going to really, and yeah, you're right, Teron, institutionalize a lot of Black and brown individual not knowing this third leg. And so that's the purpose of this meeting. And so that's why we're saying no. And so that's, and people don't understand that, and it may pass, but they may pass without it happening. So I'm going to go and just give us a few more minutes as far as Proposition A, which is called Strong Mayor. I'm going straight into that list. Strong Mayor, which, as all of you know, that we, the NAACP branch, opposes Strong Mayor. And so now that it's on the ballot, you have a community that appears to be split. You have NAACP saying no on Strong Mayor, and you have Urban League saying yes on Strong Mayor. Now, a couple of things when it comes to the Strong Mayor piece. We believe that we already have a strong mayor. Why? Let's look at Measure U. Measure U, we went against for obvious reasons. We had a mayor that convinced the community to double down their taxes forever. When the original language, and I'm putting it in simple terms, was to maintain a 1/2 cent tax, not double down to a 1 cent tax, and it had a sunset attached to it, meaning that there was an end date. So our taxes wouldn't be increased forever. And we had a 1/2 cent tax that was successful, and we actually had approximately $25 million in the black based on the 1/2 cent tax. Our mayor went in and convinced the community that you need to double down and make it a forever tax. Not even ever telling them that the option was always written within the measure to maintain the existing tax piece for a 1/2 cent, which we would not have been taxed forever. So you have a mayor that convinced a community to double down their taxes forever when they had the option on the table not to do so. Who can do that unless you're a strong mayor? We also had a Proposition G, where we supported our youth to have a percentage of existing monies to go towards our youth programs, our community, to grow them. And it didn't increase the tax at all. No increase. We found the money. We said we're going to take a percentage. I'm doing simple terms. And we put it on the ballot and said, let's invest into our communities. The mayor that says that he's not strong raised the money to go against Measure G and won. So now we don't have monies to support our youth. So let's talk about the NAACP and its lawsuit. It was first suggested to me, this is why you would want strong mayor. You wouldn't be going through this if you had strong mayor. So I did the homework myself, and by that, I checked with city manager, mayor, and city council, lead council. Says, who does the city attorney report to? I was told by the lead city council attorney, they report directly to the mayor, that the city manager had nothing to do with the lawsuit, and the entire power, if it wanted to go away, went through the mayor. So you have a mayor that felt comfortable enough to countersue the oldest civil rights organization in the nation on a civil rights issue that they violated. Now, in addition to that, we have, under this new strong mayor, you create, let me go back a little bit. So history says when an election is close, normally it's the African American vote that can actually sway it one way or the other. So if it's a close race, you name this measure, not Measure A, but you name it the Mayoral Accountability and Community Equity Act. Who do you think the title of that particular measure, who would it attract? Would it attract your your mainstream white soccer moms? Or would it attract your African American community and brown community when you're using language like accountability, community equity? So I think there's some trickery that could be involved. In addition to that, the new measure or strong mayor gives the mayor veto power. And so what can happen if he disagrees with something? He could actually line item and veto it. And in order to override his veto, it will now take, well, let me take it back. So if the city council agreed to whatever they agreed to as far as an issue, and right now it's majority vote, so they win it. It can go back to the mayor, he redline it and veto it. In order for it to be overridden by the city council, it has to now go through a 6-vote override versus a majority vote, meaning 6 council members now have to agree that they need to overturn the mayor, which is much harder, which actually weakens your existing city council. It also puts a lot of power into the hands of one individual without the help or the support of the city council members that you just recently voted in. If you now have alliances with developers and union workers and they no longer have to lobby or speak to a city council to get a majority vote, and all they have to do is speak to the mayor, there's no need to have a city council that you elected to represent your community. You just lobby the mayor. And even if you did lobby your city council members, he can veto it. And what if he doesn't like one of the city council members? He may veto those individuals more than anybody else. And then he makes it immediate. So now you will have a mayor that's no longer part of the city council. You will have a chair, I believe they call it the president of the council, who will act as the mayor did. While you are seeking a 9th person that will take 2 years, up to 2 years to replace. So you're going to run the city of Sacramento with no mayor, and it's saying that the mayor doesn't even have to appear for any city council unless I believe it's 2 times a year. And so for 2 years, we will be without. We would have to determine a 9th seat and run another person to be city council in the interim. And so our whole world is turned upside down for 2 years for something. If it's going to take 2 years to do it anyway, why don't we just wait the 2 years to make that change? Why now? And why go after language that attracts Black people? And then you attach a $40 million price tag to it and says, oh, by the way, although I'm also appealing to you Black people by calling it accountability and community equity, we're going to put $40 million to it. And those who go with me, I will write you a check. And those who don't, we will see what happens. And so if we're going to have accountability and equity, I think we could have accountability and equity detached from the strong mayor. So if he loses, does that mean we won't get equity and accountability? That should be a given. And if there's $40 million attached to this, why can't we just have that now? I'm not understanding unless there were promises made in the back room that if this passes and this $40 million I will have totally control over now, The budget is now my responsibility. And their alliances is going to be with the mayor. And so those new people that like Catherine Vanzuelos, who was just brought in, her power will be weakened immediately going into her term. So this is one of many reasons that we are opposing strong mayor, because we believe the mayor is strong already. You sued the civil rights organization. You took away money from the children for Measure G. You convinced an entire city to double down on their taxes and to do it forever. That's a strong mayor already. And to give more power to that, we are opposing strong mayor. Any questions?
Madam President, may I add to it, Roy Kaufman, very quickly, please?
Yes.
Those of you who understand the city of Los Angeles has a strong mayor, Mayor Garcetti. The city itself, councilman, as the city president pro tem. They can't do anything. The mayor has the ultimate power and the ultimate job of that. In Sacramento, the current way it's done, it's equitable between the councilman and the mayor. If you go the other route, we lose a lot of political leverage. It changes the entire, what we call city governance of a city. If you go to the strong mayor about the Steinberg. The other thing, I'm going to get personal, forgive me, and hope nobody will be offended. I'm going to tell Mayor Johnson we can't give him strong mayorship, and we give Mayor Steinberg strong mayorship. Can do. If I can't do it for the brother, I sure can't do it for him. And I know that's being personal, racial, but that's how I feel about it. But understand, the monies that come into the city, the mayor has total control, not the city council. City council can only vote accordingly based on what's presented to them. Right now, all of them have to collaborate on our city budget. So I have to stand with them with us saying no on Measure A. Thank you.
Thank you, Roy. Any other questions and or comments regarding Measure A or strong mayor? No, I can't see anything. So Stacy, help me if there's something in the chat.
It says Betty dropped the mic.
Oh.
What, sorry? Oh, sorry. Sorry. Thank you, Stacy.
Betty, this is Ariel.
Uh-huh.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I just to piggyback off of what you said, and you kind of know my position with the strong mayor situation and what he has done and what he has not done, what he's promising to do, and what he's already done on Measure G. So, you know, it doesn't matter. The mayor is a master of manipulation, and he can sway the people the way that he wants to. He is already a strong mayor, and he has different ways of proving it. You know, so I'm right there with you. You know, they can sugarcoat it. All these other organizations can say yes on strong mayor, but we already know what he's capable of doing. So that's, again, my position.
Okay, thank you, Ardell. Any other comments or questions?
Yes, I have a quick comment to make for the support for strong mayor, the organizations that are supporting, you know, proposition or Measure A. I think that, you know, obviously, like you mentioned, there's some interest in, you know, supporting that. And I think that's where a lot of the other organizations that have aligned with him or personally connected to him somehow have done that. And so I know that there's a majority and a lot of people opposing, and just wanted to mention that, you know, there was, 3 city council members that opposed the measure as he, you know, was introducing it and going back to the table to, you know, reform it, and still didn't, you know, change it. So there was a lot of people in opposition to this, and I don't think that it's really a split topic in the community of advocates and organizations that have came about, even though there are some organizations that have their interests on the line and can benefit from this. There are a lot of organizations that I've seen that have taken up the effort, a valiant effort to, you know, push against this So yeah, and I'm glad we're a part of that.
Thank you, Jalil. I appreciate that. Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
We are at 12:17.
Oh, thank you.
And the next thing on the list as far as the agenda is announcements.
Okay, so we will go to announcements. Anyone have announcements of upcoming events or things that's going on?
Yes, ma'am. Madam President Rory Kaufman, may I make an announcement, please?
Yes, sir.
This coming Monday, and forgive me, everyone, but we had no other choice. The campaign for Proposition 16 will have a in person, I think that's the new term now, on the state capitol, Monday, 12 noon. We're going to line it up that is respect social distancing. We're going to map out that. We've got the music support of the great DJ Gino. We have a number of guest speakers, including Madam President Betty Williams on the day. It's 1 hour only, and I made that clear because we will be giving masks out to everybody. We don't want anyone to catch any kind of cold or COVID virus or anything, but it's 1 hour to try to help to educate our people that we need to pass Proposition 16. Assemblyman McCarty is just gracious, will be speaking also, and several other community leaders, but the key will, of course, be Betty. So I would encourage those of you who can do to feel comfortable. I know it's Monday, I know it's 12 noon, and not 90% of us are still trying to work, but if you could give us time to join our rally that day, this is a very important proposition, like 25 and 17 and the rest. We're trying to make sure that the public is aware of how important this is. So Monday, 12 noon, State Capitol, North Steps, the one facing L Street. We'll be there for 1 hour just to give information about Proposition 16 and how we need to vote to pass it. I hope everyone can come out if they can just for 1 hour and be a part of it. And again, I understand if you can't because of the COVID virus, but thank you very much for allowing me to make that announcement.
Thank you, Roy Kaufman. Any other announcements?
I did put in the link, Betty, the connection to tomorrow evening's webinar with the state experts on Prop 25.
Thank you, Lynn. And I'm going to share that with the entire state, that link. So meeting state, NAACP, all 52 branches. We had an executive meeting last night, and I told them about the event for tomorrow, but I didn't have the link or the information at the time of my executive meeting last night. And all the branch presidents were interested in participating, so I will share that. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
I
Jalil,
have a quick
go ahead.
question. Yeah, I just wanted to ask about, this is more of not an announcement, but an administrative question. This was a great a meeting today, and I think the information discussed between the two candidates would be great information for some of us to, spread around some more. So if there's a way, I saw that this event is being recorded. If there's anybody, I'm just not sure who the person, where the recording of this meeting goes. But if I could get that from somebody, I could work on, getting a clip of the candidates and their portion and their speeches and putting it into a video on YouTube or something like that, so we can put it out there some more.
Absolutely. We do have a YouTube channel that Lorraine, once after each recording, she cleans it up or whatever she does.
Okay.
And then it goes to the Sacramento NAACP YouTube channel, and you can pull it from there.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other Velma, are you on the line? Because I thought Velma had an event coming up.
Madam President.
Yes.
What about the meeting for November for the NAACP general meeting?
Oh, good point. Thank you, Pastor Banks. Because we will not be having an election, we will not be having an election meeting in November, and so we have opted not to have a meeting. However, our housing chair wanted to use that opportunity to deal with the housing situation and the eviction, and so for next month there will not be an election process at all, but we will and can give the opportunity to the housing chair to talk about the laws to how to protect yourself with the housing evictions that are happening and what you can do. So it will be a little bit different. Oh, state conference. Thank you, Jalil. We are having our state conference this month. Actually, it's the third weekend, and we did choose 8 delegates, and I believe, well, 8 delegates and 2 youth and 2 alternates, I believe. And so we have room for 6 more alternates if anyone is interested. Put that information in the chat box, and as long as you are a member, we can accommodate. But put that information in the chat box so that Stacy could capture it and get the information so that we can follow up. But the state convention is huge. We are going to be talking about a lot of the propositions. It's normally well attended with the governor as well as our national president, Derek Johnson, Assembly and Senate individuals. We have opportunities to bring in resolutions. So if we think of any resolutions that the Sacramento branch would like to bring to the state, and it's on changes based on state law, and that we can write resolutions on. There was a text up there about something about SHRA, and I couldn't quite get it. But so for whatever reason, I'm having a brain freeze on the actual date of the convention. However, if you Google California State NAACP and go to their website, all the convention information is on there. And I do know it's always around the 2nd or 4th weekend of October. So I'll make sure I'll get that information out to everyone that's on this piece, and we'll have it out. So just, if you're interested in being alternate, let me know, and or let Stacy know in the chat, and we'll go from there. You guys are great for helping me remember things. Anything else that I may have forgotten?
Oh.
No?
Oh, Betty?
It's a vote.
Malachi, the convention is October the 23rd and the 24th virtually.
October 23rd and 24th?
Yes.
Cool.
All right, excellent, excellent. It's what I can promise you, Alice Huffman puts on a full convention. You will not be disappointed, and you think you got information here? Oh my God, you have no idea how much information you get at the state convention under her leadership. So we welcome anyone who would, within our delegates range, who would like to participate. Go ahead, Malachi.
I'm sorry. You all will be sending us additional information for the delegates.
Yes, we will, as soon as we pay for it. It's just $40 a piece, so we can afford it. But yeah, as soon as we pay for it, you should be getting your delegates information. So yes.
Right. Okay. Thank you. I was just another reminder.
No, I appreciate it. I need all the help I can get these days. Thank you. And welcome and thank you again for all the new people that participated. It was quite a few hands, and some of you have already put in the chat box that you thought it was informative. We normally have some informative, and this was one of the milder meetings. We've had some very passionate meetings in the past. So, but that's what it's all about, in sharing our information and making sure that our community gets all the information, not just the commercial version. So we hope that we were able to achieve some of that today. If there's no more.
There's one clarification I need. Sorry, Madam President.
Yes.
State of Experts Prop 25 event, what day is that? And what time?
Say that again?
The State of Experts Proposition 25 event for Lynn.
I just emailed it to you, Stacy. It's tomorrow at 7, Sunday at 7. p.m. And I emailed it to you, so it should have just popped up in your email.
Okay, that was just for everyone else on the phone to know when it is.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so Len, you've shared that with everyone for tomorrow night in the chat box?
Oh,
If you
yes,
can't-
I sent the link to everyone in the chat box. I don't have everyone's email, so I did email it to the people I know on this call. I just emailed it, but so I did
You
both.
sent the link, though. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, great. And please share with your friends, because a lot of people are confused on why we took that position on Prop 25. And now you know more information than a lot of individuals know, and that we hope that you're able to communicate that as well. And so someone give me a time. Where's my clock? Where's my watch?
12:28.
2020, yeah.
12:28?
Mhm.
Okay, at 12:28, we will call this meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate everyone on this call. I really do. And see you next.
Don't forget to vote, everybody.
Right, don't forget to vote, November 3rd. Don't forget to vote. Thank you, everyone.
That's right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you all.
Great
Thank
meeting,
you.
guys.
Wonderful meeting.
Thank you, Stacy.
Thank you, guys.